On September 30th, 2003, the Governor of Pennsylvania signed into law Act 24, which is the new DUI law. Section 3805 of Act 24 covers ignition interlocks. This section requires that anyone who is arrested for second or subsequent DUI after October 1st, 2003 must serve 1 year on ignition interlock before they can apply for an unrestricted license. It also states that offenders must have an interlock device installed in every vehicle registered in their name. It does allow for an economic hardship exemption, in which case a qualifying individual will be required to install the device on only one vehicle. An ignition interlock is a device that is installed on motor vehicles to prohibit individuals under the influence of alcohol from operating the vehicle. Individuals are required to blow into the device before starting the vehicle. If the device detects alcohol, it will prevent the vehicle from starting. In addition, at periodic times during the operation of the vehicle, the driver will be prompted to blow into the device to ensure they are not driving under the influence. Here are some examples of PennDOT-approved interlock devices that are currently being used in the field. All of these devices serve the same function, but there are different identifying features and capabilities for each. These devices vary in shape, size, and color. Some of the devices have a digital readout or light display on the actual head unit. On other units, the digital readout is given on a control module which is separate from the sample head that the individual is blowing into. Although each of these devices has a mouthpiece attachment, it is important to remember that these attachments vary in design and all of them are removable. So the mouthpiece should not be used as the only source of identification for an ignition interlock device. Another important difference between these devices is the anti-circumvention features used by each. Some of these devices require the air sample be delivered with a simultaneous hum and blow. Some of the devices also require the individual perform a sharp suckback at some point during the test. And other devices test the actual breath temperature being delivered. All of these anti-circumvention features are designed to prevent an individual from providing a bogus breath sample from an alternative air source, such as an air compressor or can of compressed air. At approximately 30 days prior to the end of their 1-year license suspension, all multiple DUI offenders will be sent a letter in the mail notifying them that they will soon be eligible for an ignition interlock restricted license. It is at that point that the offender will set up an appointment to have an ignition interlock device installed in their vehicle. Hi, I'm Bill Jones. I have an appointment to have an interlock device installed on my car.
Okay, Mr. Jones, what I'm going to have you do is fill out some forms. This is your self-certification form from PennDOT that you need to fill out. This is a form from probation office, and this is an information booklet. Keep that for your reference. Our phone number's on the back of that. I'll give you another card anyway before you leave. This you want to fill out, that gets your license process started at PennDOT.
Okay, great. An offender will be required to have an ignition interlock system installed in every vehicle registered in their name. If an individual meets the economic hardship exemption requirements, they can qualify to have the device installed on only one vehicle. The Service Center will check through the Department of Motor Vehicle records at the time of installation and at every subsequent monitoring appointment to verify that every vehicle registered to the individual has an approved interlock system installed. Oh, hey, sometimes my boss asks me to deliver some various items in a company car. Is there any way that I can actually do that legally, still having the interlock license?
You can. What you need to do is fill this form out, have your employer fill this part out, you fill this section out, list the vehicles that you're going to be driving, the territory, your position, the days and hours that you work. Your employer has to sign it, get it notarized, and you need to carry this with you at all times. Your ignition interlock license is restricted. You're only allowed to drive a vehicle equipped with an interlock, so you need to carry that with you.
There's only one way in which an individual with an ignition interlock restricted license can legally operate a motor vehicle that is not equipped with an approved interlock system. That is to have a notarized employment exemption affidavit form with them. The DL 3805, Ignition Interlock Employment Exemption Affidavit, needs to be filled out by the employer, notarized, and carried by the employee at all times while driving that employer-owned vehicle. This form will state the specific times and areas in which the offender will be operating the employee-owned vehicle. In addition to the anti-circumvention features, which are a required function of the interlock device, all installers are required to place a unique and identifiable tamper-resistant seals on all electrical connections. These tamper seals are intended to discourage Interlock program participants from tampering with the device. They are also used as means for the service technician to identify if a device has been tampered with since the last service appointment. Service technicians are required to check for tampering at each visit. Interlock program participants are required by law to make their vehicles available for regularly scheduled maintenance appointments. The first maintenance appointment is scheduled for 30 days after the initial installation, and all subsequent appointments are scheduled for every 60 days thereafter, until the individual completes the program. As part of these maintenance appointments, the service technician will calibrate the Interlock device to ensure that it continues to record an accurate alcohol level. The technician will also download the data log, which shows all activity for the device over the last monitoring period. That data log will show if there have been any start violations, power disconnections, or high alcohol levels, as well as any other activity relevant to the individual's compliance with the Interlock program.
Mr. Jones, Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, you blew fail, .050.
Oh, right, yeah, I had a few drinks at the Monday night game the night before, but I had no idea the alcohol would still be in my system by the next day. I wonder why I couldn't get that started.
.0250 is the limit on that. Anything over .0250, you can't start your car.
Okay. Well,
About
thanks.
one drink.
What about one drink?
Yeah.
Okay. There is no law that prevents a program participant from blowing high alcohol levels into the device. However, after 3 high alcohol levels in a monitoring period, the device requires an early service call, which translates into additional costs for the offender. In this instance, the device is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It has separated drinking from driving. There are laws which prevent individuals from tampering with the device. Section 3808B of the new DUI law covers penalties for tampering with an Interlock device. There are generally 3 ways to tamper or circumvent an Interlock device. The first way is any attempt to start the vehicle without first providing a proper breath sample into the Interlock device. This may include a jumper wire connected to the ignition wire that bypasses the Interlock device, crossing the starter solenoid with screwdrivers, or jump-starting a standard transmission car. It is possible to start the vehicle using all of these techniques. However, these actions will be recorded as start violations on the data log and send the device into early service call status. The second method for tampering with the device is to have an individual other than the driver provide a clean breath sample. The third method for tampering with an Interlock device is to provide a bogus air sample. The techniques for providing bogus air samples are limitless, but most will not work because of the anti-circumvention features that are required for the Interlock devices. If the service center identifies the case of tampering, they are required to complete a tamper notification form, which is sent to the Department of Transportation. The department will then notify the individual and the DA from the appropriate county that they have become aware that the individual is tampering with their Interlock device.
Mr. Jones, since the last time you were here when I ran a check of PennDOT, there's another vehicle that is registered in your name.
Oh, yes, I bought a car for my daughter for her birthday, but I just haven't had a chance to transfer the registration to her name.
Okay, that's fine. You have 10 days to transfer that over into your daughter's name, or one of 2 things has to happen. You will either have to install an Interlock on that vehicle, or we'll have to submit a non-compliance form to PennDOT saying that you had bought another vehicle but did not have an Interlock installed on it.
The service center is required to check the Department of Motor Vehicle records at each service appointment to ensure that every vehicle registered in the participant's name has an approved Interlock device installed on it. If the individual fails to make any vehicle available to have an Interlock installed or maintained, the service center is required to send a DL-373, Ignition Interlock Non-Compliance Report, to the Department of Transportation. The department will then suspend a restricted license until they are notified by the service provider that the individual has come into compliance. There are several key steps to remember when dealing with a driver with an Ignition Interlock restricted license. Step 1 is to identify Ignition Interlock restricted license. Notice that the license is predominantly red and says limited license on the left side. It also has the words Ignition Interlock and a map of PA on the bottom right corner. Step 2 is to have the driver shut off the vehicle. Step 3 is to observe in the vehicle for Ignition Interlock device. Step 4. After 3 minutes have passed, have the individual attempt to start the vehicle without providing a breath sample. It is important to wait for at least 3 minutes because all the approved devices allow for a 3-minute sample-free restart. for instances where the vehicle might stall at an intersection and may need to be restarted quickly. If the vehicle starts without the driver providing a breath sample, then A, the device has been tampered with, or B, there is no interlock device hooked up to the ignition wire. The charge for operating a vehicle not equipped with the ignition interlock device is 3808A1. The charge for operating a vehicle not equipped with the ignition interlock device with an alcohol level above 0.025 is 3808A2. As discussed earlier, the charge for tampering with an interlock device is 3808B. If the vehicle will not start without providing a breath sample, have the driver deliver a proper breath sample into the unit and start the vehicle. Observe the digital display on the interlock device while the breath sample is being delivered. If the device gives a fail signal, the driver has an alcohol level above 0.025. It is important to remember that these devices are not evidentiary. However, if the individual fails the test on the interlock device, it should provide cause for further field sobriety testing. In the first example we're going to look at, the officer notices on a routine traffic stop that the driver has an ignition interlock restricted license. This is how the exchange should look if the individual has an interlock device installed and the device is operating properly.
Hi, may I see your license, registration, and proof of insurance, please? Thank you. I see you have an ignition interlock restricted license. Can you shut your engine off, please? Where's your ignition interlock device?
Oh, it's right here.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Just sit tight here. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, sir, would you please turn the key and attempt to start your vehicle?
It won't start unless I blow into the interlock device.
Okay, would you please blow into the device, sir?
Sure. I passed.
Okay, sir. Would you please start your vehicle?
Sure. Thank you. In our next example, the officer encounters a driver with ignition interlock restricted license, but also has an employee exemption form, which allows the individual to operate an employee-owned vehicle that is not equipped with an ignition interlock device.
Okay, sir, where's your ignition interlock device?
Oh, I don't have one on this vehicle. This is a company car.
Okay, do you have an employment exemption form?
Yeah, oh yes, I do. Yes, I
Can
do.
I see it, please?
Sure. This one?
Thank you.
The DL3805 Ignition Interlock Employment Exemption Affidavit should state the vehicle that the individual will be driving, as well as the times and locations where the individual is authorized to be driving this vehicle. The form is only valid if it has been signed by the employer and notarized. The individual must have this form with him at all times while operating the employee-owned vehicle. The following is an example of a driver with an ignition interlock device that has been bypassed or is not connected to the ignition system.
Okay, sir, would you turn the key and attempt to start your vehicle, please?
Sure.
How did your vehicle start without blowing into the device, sir?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, this, I tell you what, this thing hasn't really been working so well. I was planning on having it looked at later on today or even tomorrow, probably.
Okay, sir, shut off your vehicle, please, and step out.
It is very important that the interlock service technician have the opportunity to observe the vehicle and device, download the data log, and take pictures if appropriate before a bypassed interlock device is released to the individual. Each company that installs interlock devices has a 24-hour emergency contact number. By allowing the interlock technician to provide an expert opinion on how the device was bypassed, as well as supporting documentation and pictures, the prosecutor will have a much easier time prosecuting a case involving tampering with an interlock device. In our next example, the officer encounters a driver with an ignition interlock restricted license who is operating a vehicle not equipped with an ignition interlock device. The individual also has an alcohol level above 0.025.
Where's your ignition interlock device, sir?
Oh, I don't have one.
Have you been drinking today, sir?
No, well, I had one with lunch. That's
You did? Okay. Sir, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, please. Can you walk back this way with me, sir? I'm going to need you to do some field sobriety tests for me, sir.
Okay. The charge for operating a vehicle not equipped with an ignition interlock device is 3808A1. This is a summary offense and calls for a fine between $300 and $1,000 and imprisonment for not more than 90 days. The charge for operating a vehicle not equipped with ignition interlock device and with an alcohol level equal to or greater than .025 is 3808A2. This is a misdemeanor of the third degree and calls for a fine of $1,000 and imprisonment for not less than 90 days. The officer can then also perform field sobriety testing to determine if additional DUI charges would be warranted. Law enforcement can place the operator under arrest at this point due to tampering with the device. Since the operator is under the influence, the device had to have been tampered with for the vehicle to operate. These are just a few scenarios that law enforcement personnel could confront when dealing with ignition interlock systems. 30 days prior to the end of the 1-year ignition interlock restricted license period, the offender will receive a letter in the mail from PennDOT informing them of their eligibility date and requirements to receive an unrestricted license. It is at this point that the client will complete the application for an unrestricted license and set up an appointment to have the device removed from their vehicle. The client must show the service technician his unrestricted license before the service center will remove the interlock device.
Hey, Mr. Jones.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Did you get your unrestricted license back?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm gonna need to see that.
Okay. There.
Great, nice picture.
Thank you.
What I'm gonna have you do is pull it into the garage and come on back in here and we'll get the rest of your stuff taken care of.
Okay, great.
Deinstall that.
Thanks.